Echo-7. Patrol log, pilot Jax Harlan, vessel Nereid 3, United Oceanic Survey. Depth, 4,100 meters. Position, Mid-Atlantic Ridge, Sector 11. Date, November 14th. Routine night. That's what I log. Routine night. 8 hours of transect survey, sediment imaging, water column sampling. The ridge at this depth is about as dramatic as a highway at 3 a.m. Long, empty, familiar in the way that only profoundly alien environments become familiar when you've spent enough hours inside them. I've been running solo patrols for 6 years. You get used to the silence. You get used to the dark. You get used to the fact that your entire world is 4 meters of reinforced hull and a viewport the size of a dinner plate. And beyond that viewport is an environment that would kill you in under a second if the metal between you and it ever decided to stop cooperating. You get used to all of it. What you don't get used to, what no amount of hours at depth prepares you for, is seeing something that shouldn't be there. 0200 hours. I was running the northern transect, maybe 2 kilometers off the ridge's western face, when the passive optical array picked up a light source at approximately 800 meters bearing northeast. Not unusual. Bioluminescence is constant at depth. It's one of the things that keeps solo pilots from going entirely mad on long patrols. The ocean down here is full of cold fire, but I've been doing this long enough to know the vocabulary of it. Dinoflagellate clouds pulse in sheets. Anglerfish lures make a single patient point of light. Siphonophores, colonial organisms that can stretch 20 meters or more, trail curtains of blue-green that drift and undulate with the current. Each pattern has a signature. I know the vocabulary. What I saw at 800 meters bearing northeast didn't belong to any word in it. 2 lights, running parallel, spaced approximately 4 meters apart, moving at roughly 2 knots on a consistent heading, showing the exact spectral signature, blue-white at 470 nanometers, with a secondary pulse at 510, of a specific class of deep-sea submersible running light. Specifically, the running lights used on survey-class vessels built between 1978 and 1991. I sat very still for about 15 seconds. Then I pulled the Fleet Registry archive for that spectral class. 11 vessels, 7 decommissioned, 3 active, all currently logged at surface dock. 1 listed as lost. Echo-7, Mid-Atlantic Ridge Survey Vessel. Lost November 19, 1986. All hands. 4 crew, including survey pilot Daniel Harlan, my father. I logged it as probable squid mimicry. Certain species, Taninja danai, the Dana octopus squid, some of the larger colonial siphonophores, can produce remarkably coherent light patterns that fool both human observers and optical sensors. The deep ocean didn't evolve bioluminescence for beauty, it evolved it as a tool. Anglerfish dangle lights to lure prey close enough to eat. Some squid use coordinated chromatophore displays to confuse predators or attract mates. The ocean is very good at making light do what it needs light to do. I logged it as mimicry. I adjusted my heading to intercept. I want to be clear about my reasoning, because I've run it many times since, and I want the record to be honest. I didn't follow the signal because I believed it was Echo-7. Echo-7 went down 38 years ago, in conditions that would have destroyed the pressure hull within minutes of whatever happened. There is no scenario, no mechanism, no physical process by which that vessel or any part of it could be operational at 4 kilometers depth nearly 4 decades later. I followed it because the light pattern changed. At 0208 hours, the 2 running lights, still parallel, still moving at 2 knots, began producing a secondary flash sequence. Long, short, short, long, long, short, long, long, Morse code. And the message was SOS. I know that's not how squid work, I know that. But I also know that it was 0208 hours and I was alone at 4 kilometers depth in absolute darkness, and my father's boat was producing Morse distress signals in front of me, so I followed it deeper. The light pattern held its 2-knot pace for approximately 20 minutes, drawing me northeast and incrementally down. 4,200, 4,400, 4,700. Nereid 3 is rated to 6,000 meters, with a comfortable operating margin to 5. I was well within limits. I followed. At 0231 hours, still following, the lights produced a second message. Long, long, short. Long, long, short, short. Long, short, long. Ghost. That was my father's nickname for me. Ghost. Because I used to sleepwalk as a child, drifting through the house at night without waking. He called me Ghost for 20 years, until the day he left for the Echo-7's last survey mission and said goodbye at the dock, and ruffled my hair and said, "See you in 3 weeks, Ghost." He was the only person who ever called me that. The hull gave a long, low creak at 4,800 meters. I logged. Coincidence, acoustic pattern, but Dad's code. Following to confirm source. I kept following. Patrol log continued. 0300 hours. Depth 5,112 meters. I found it. Or rather, I found what the lights had been leading me toward. At 5112, the passive array resolved a solid contact approximately 40 meters ahead. Large, rectangularish, sitting on an outcrop of ridge basalt, like something that had been set down carefully and left there. The silhouette. The silhouette was an exact match for a survey-class submersible, circa 1980, approximately 12 meters long. Twin rear thruster housings, the distinctive rounded bow profile, the antenna array running the dorsal spine, the porthole placement along the starboard flank, 3 windows, evenly spaced. I know that silhouette. I grew up with photographs of that silhouette pinned to the wall above my desk. I have drawn that silhouette from memory more times than I can count. It was Echo-7, or something that looked exactly like Echo-7. I stopped Nereid 3 at 30 meters and ran every sensor I had. Optical, acoustic, magnetic, thermal. The acoustic return was consistent with a metal hull of approximately the right tonnage. The magnetic signature matched high carbon steel of the period. Thermal showed no differential, no internal heat source, no active systems, nothing to indicate a live crew, nothing to indicate a live anything. But the running lights were still on. And then, from the communications array, from the emergency frequency that nobody uses anymore, the one that was standard in the 1980s and was phased out in 1994, something came through. Static first, then through the static, a voice I recognized. It said, "Son, I want to log this accurately. I am aware that nitrogen narcosis, the buildup of dissolved nitrogen in the bloodstream at pressure, the so-called rapture of the deep, can produce auditory hallucinations at depth. I am aware that solo pilots at extreme depth have reported hearing voices, music, their own names. I am aware that I am alone, that I have been alone for 7 hours, and that the human brain is remarkably good at constructing meaning from noise when it is desperate enough for meaning. I am aware of all of that." The voice said, "Son, we're still down here. Help us." And it was his voice, not a reasonable facsimile, not my brain finding the pattern it wanted in random static. His voice, the specific timbre, the way he dropped the end of words just slightly, the cadence that I had spent 40 years not being able to forget. I said out loud to an empty cabin, "Dad." No response. The static resumed. I stayed at 30 meters distance and watched the Echo-7 silhouette for the next 20 minutes. The lights continued their sequences. They had moved past Morse. moved into something more personal. The porthole lights began pulsing in groups. 4 pulses, pause. 2 pulses, pause. 7 pulses. The crew roster of Echo-7 had 4 people. Daniel Harlan, 1. Maria Costa, 2. Tom Wickfield, 3. Young, 4. Wait. 7 pulses. Wait. No. I was counting wrong. 3 pulses. 4. 2. The names. They were spelling the names. Harlan, Costa, Wickfield, Young. My father's crew. People I had read about in the accident report when I was 8 years old, sitting in a government office next to my mother while she signed papers and held my hand too tightly. I said, into the log, in a voice that was doing its best. This is mimicry. I need to document this and then I need to ascend. This is biomimicry at a level that has not been previously recorded, and it needs to be documented before I ascend. I didn't ascend. I logged the oxygen level, 8% below expected for elapsed time, probably from elevated respiration I hadn't consciously noticed. And I held position and I watched the lights. At 0342 hours, the voice came back. It said, "Jax, we've been waiting. They're alive down here. I know how that sounds. I know exactly how that sounds, and I'm logging it anyway. 38 years at 5 kilometers depth, and they're alive, and the lights are their signals, and the voice is his voice, and I have been waiting my entire adult life for a reason to go deeper." Nereid 3 descended. Log. Depth 6,200. Hull status nominal, but the alarm is the structural stress indicator. It's been intermittent for the last 40 minutes. I've acknowledged and silenced it 11 times. The rated depth for Nereid 3 is 6,000 meters. I am 200 meters below rated depth, and I am still descending because the silhouette is still ahead of me and the lights are doing something I don't have language for. They're not just the Echo-7 running lights anymore. The whole water column around me is alive, a field of bioluminescence extending in every direction, above, below, to both sides, pulsing and shifting in patterns that I can only describe as deliberate. Not random biology, not drift patterns, not feeding behavior, messages. Some of them are the crew names again, over and over. Some of them are Morse, distress signals layering on top of each other until the pattern becomes noise. But some of them, in the brief moments when the other light dies back, some of them are faces. Shapes in the light that resolve, if you hold your focus, into human faces. I recognize them. Tom Wickfield had a photograph in the accident report. 41 years old, dark beard, heavy set. The face in the light to my port side has a dark beard. I know that this is pareidolia, the human tendency to find faces in random patterns. I know that the brain is hardwired to identify faces above almost any other stimulus. So hardwired that it will construct them from clouds and wood grain and the shadows on a wall. I know that. The face looks like Tom Wickfield. 6,400. The whole stress alarm is continuous now. I've stopped silencing it. It's background. Everything is background. The voices are not background. There are 4 of them now, on the same dead frequency, layering over each other but distinct. I can separate them if I focus. My father is always the closest, the clearest, the one that lands in the center of my chest like something with weight. The others are further away, like people talking in the next room. One of them said my mother's name. My mother, who passed away 3 years ago, who never knew what happened to my father, who waited 6 months before accepting the government's lost declaration, and another 2 years before she could sleep without leaving a light on. Her name, said in a voice I don't recognize, from a frequency that hasn't been active in 30 years. I stopped the descent. I sat at 6,400 meters, and I had a conversation with myself that I'm going to log in full. because I need the record to contain this moment. It's not them. I know it's not them. It's a biological entity. It's what the anglerfish does, scaled up. It finds the frequency you respond to and it broadcasts it. It found your weakness and it's using it. The anglerfish lure isn't beautiful to other fish because it's beautiful. It's beautiful because the fish that don't find it beautiful don't get close enough to eat. It found the thing you can't look away from and it made that thing. I know. Then turn around. But what if? There is no what if. There is no Echo-7. There is no voice. There is something very large and very old that has had a very long time to learn exactly what to say to get things like you close enough. I know. My father's voice said, "Ghost, we found something beautiful down here. Come and see." 6,600 meters. I descended. Log. Depth. 7,000 and... The depth gauge is... The instrument is reading. I've lost the specific number. The display is flickering. That might be a sensor issue, or it might be that the hull has developed a microfracture that's allowing moisture into the instrument bay, which would mean that the structural integrity is... It doesn't matter. The light ahead of me is so beautiful. I want to log that. I want that in the record. Whatever is producing it, whatever entity has been assembling these signals from 40 years of grief and an 8-year-old boy's research reports and the specific frequency of a dead man's voice, it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. A cloud of bioluminescence half a kilometer across, maybe more, shifting through spectral ranges that I don't have names for. Not just the blue-green of standard ocean biology, golds and violets, and a deep warm red that shouldn't exist at this depth and temperature. That has no biological mechanism I can account for. It looks like every warm light I've ever come home to. It looks like a kitchen light left on. It looks like the lamp in the window of a house that has someone in it who is waiting for you. The Echo-7 silhouette is directly ahead of me. 20 meters. 10. It looks, from this distance, in this light, it looks perfect. The way I imagined it when I was a child, when I used to think about finding it, before I grew up and became someone who knew that finding it was impossible, before I learned to be practical and measured and to accept the arithmetic of pressure and time and what they do to metal and the things inside metal, before I learned to stop waiting. The porthole lights are all on. 3 windows, starboard flank, warm light inside, impossible warm light, the kind that means habitation, that means people, that means I'm going to dock. I know somewhere underneath all of this, in the part of me that is still the person who has been a solo pilot for 6 years and knows what depth does and knows what grief does and knows the difference between the two. I know what this is. I know the anglerfish doesn't stop glowing when the prey gets close. It glows brighter. It glows the color of everything you've ever wanted until you're close enough that brightness is the last thing you see. I know. The light is coming through my viewport. Dad, I can see. Through the porthole, through the Echo-7's porthole, I can see a figure, standing in the warm light, facing the viewport, looking out, the way someone looks out a window when they're waiting for a car in the driveway. The posture of someone who has been patient for a very long time and is finally, he looks exactly like the photographs. He looks exactly like the photographs my mother kept on the mantle until the day she passed away. Final log, or it might be the final log. The instruments I can still read are, the descent is continuing, I think. It's hard to. Gravity still works. Entropy still works. The only thing still working correctly is the light. The light is working perfectly. I want to say, for whoever reviews this recording, whoever finds it if the beacon deploys correctly on impact, I suppose, I want to say that I'm aware I want that in the record. I was aware, at each step, of what was happening. I made each decision with full knowledge of the alternative. I couldn't not. That's the thing about the lure. The anglerfish doesn't win because the prey is stupid. The prey knows the ocean. The prey knows the dark. The prey has survived 1,000 dangers through intelligence and speed and instinct. The anglerfish wins because the lure is, in a specific and personal way, exactly what the prey has always been unable to look away from. It builds the lure out of you. It reads you, your frequencies, your patterns, your 40 years of a particular absence, and it builds the exact shape of the thing you cannot walk away from. It has been doing this longer than our species has existed. It is very, very good at it. I couldn't not. There are lights ahead. Home. Surface recovery note. Nereid 3 emergency beacon recovered November 15th at 0940 hours. Position logged. Vessel not recovered. Pilot not recovered. Beacon deployed automatically from depth 7,204 meters. Secondary note. Added by recovery medic. Beacon housing examined for damage. Interior surface of housing shows anomalous biological deposit. Thin film, unclassified, bioluminescent. Emits faint blue-white light at 470 nanometers. Recovery medic who handled beacon housing without gloves reported unusual symptom at 1800 hours. Following shift. Under the skin of his right palm, a faint, cold glow. He said it looked like a running light. He said it made him want to go back to the water. Following.